and welcome to my channel. My name is Anya, and in today's video, as you have probably seen by the title, it's going to be a battle of 5 different micro brow style brow pencils. I have 5 ones here from 4 different brands, and I have been testing them out over the last couple of weeks. I've tried them, used them. There's going to be a demo of how I apply them in this video once I get to each individual product. And because my hair is an Auburn red, not very visible because it's up right now, all of these are in the shade Auburn. I have the Anastasia Brow in Auburn. I have the BH Cosmetics BH Studio Pro HD Brow Pencil in Auburn. I have 2 brow pencils from Colourpop. I have the Brow Boss in Auburn and the brow pencil in Arched Auburn. And then I have the NYX Micro Brow Pencil in Auburn. I have had these for a while in my drawer, and I've been meaning to do this video for months. I just haven't had the energy to do it because this video takes more to film than my regular one, but I have been enjoying playing around with these, and I have discovered a couple of things with them that I wasn't that familiar with, and it's been a fun thing. One of those things is how different a shade range can be if it's labelled Auburn, because I have 5 here. They are 4 different colours technically, because both of the Colourpop pencils are very close, although they do end up looking like 2 different colours on me. So I have 5 different tones of Auburn, going from light, almost orange, to very, very dark. Generally with micro brow pencils, they are the brow product that I prefer to use. I find them to be very easy to use, easy to control. I tend to fill my entire brows in, so I go through them quite quickly, which is the only downside to them, because you do not get a lot of product in here. In 4 of these you do get 0.003 ounces, or between 0.08 and 0.09 grams. One of them contains 0.001 ounce and only 0.03 grams, which was a bit of a shocker for me because I did not see that coming, because they all have fairly similar packaging. The width of all the products are fairly the same, and the fact that there was that much of a weight difference with a product like this, because you're already getting very little product because it is so small. I don't like the fact that with a packaging that is near identical, one of these weighs a third of the other. I just don't like that. The price varies also quite a lot between these 5 pencils. The cheapest of these is $6 and the most expensive is $23. I have not done the math and broken it down price per gram or price per use, because that is going to, price per gram is going to be the same for everyone, but price per use is going to differ between how much you use when you use it. And I honestly have not bothered with it. It's not something that I think of as necessary for me with a product like this. I already have a favourite with this one. If you've seen any of my other videos, most likely I've talked about it, and it's one that I've repurchased over and over and over again, and I will get to that. But the pros for me when it comes to micro brow pencils is, as I said, the ease of application. They're very small, so I have a lot of control. I can draw very small hair-like strokes if that's what I want to, and I can also easily use it to fill in a full brow if that is what I need. Something that I also don't have an issue with, they don't move. There are 5 different formulations here, all in various softness, I should say. One of them is more firm than the other, and I have one that is very, very soft. But I don't find that they move around. For me, I don't have to worry about if I, go to wipe my forehead if I'm being a bit sweaty or if it's very hot. I don't have to worry about my brow coming off. Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit off of my hand, but overall it stays put and I don't have to worry about it. The downside to this is that I use them up fairly quickly. I fill in my entire brows with this, and I can use this up in between 4 and 8 weeks, depending on how frequently I wear makeup. If you're someone who wears makeup every single day and you do also fill in your brows somewhat similar thickness to mine, you can go through these, and I will say probably as little as 2 weeks to 4 weeks. They can also be expensive because you get so little product in here, and because the price ranges from $6 to $23. The most expensive is very expensive if you're going to break it down to price per gram or ounce, depending on what your measurements preference is. And having to replace it, I would say at minimum 12 times a year, if not more than that, it does add up. Another con specifically with the 5 that I have here that I discovered is the shades. The shades. I have one in here that I absolutely prefer, and I have another one that I like and will use if I have to. But I have one in here that to me looks brown. It doesn't even look like there's red in it. And then I have one that is super dark. If you are shopping online and looking for colours, it's going to be perhaps a bit difficult if you're used to one of these and you're considering maybe looking for something cheaper or something different. The colours are not the same, not even close, and that was the biggest shock to me when testing these out. I knew the Anastasia one was pricey and that was something to sort of get over, but the fact that the colour difference between these 5 are so big also came as a bit of a shock to me. And I have a close-up here of all of the 5 shades, and you can also probably see there is a fair amount of difference between them. There is a big difference between them, but I think the easiest way for me to be able to explain the difference and also for you to be able to understand it is going to be going pencil by pencil. So I'm going to start with the Anastasia one. So the Anastasia Brow is the most expensive out of the 5. It's $23 US on their website. All of the prices I have listed are from the website of the brand, just to simplify things for myself. This is also the darkest colour and one of the softest formulations. Overall, between all of the 5, I don't notice that much of a difference in formulation. The biggest difference I notice is in colour, but this is one of the softer ones, which means that it does transfer very easily onto the face. And that can be a plus for some people. Personally, I prefer something that is a little harder to transfer, because I find that when it is very soft I have less control because more product gets on, and with this particularly, this is very dark and it just ends up looking very dark, so I don't love it for that. I also find because it is so soft I struggle getting a lot of the smaller details, which for me is in a part of my brow here. I try to draw hair-like strokes. I end up almost entirely filling in the area because it's just easier. But trying to draw hair-like strokes, this doesn't really work. Partly I think it's because I am impatient and don't want to sit forever drawing hair-like strokes all through my eyebrows. But also because it is so soft and I end up with either very light strokes or very dark strokes, and struggle to really find a balance of that. When it comes to filling in my entire brow, as you can see whilst I'm talking, I found it very easy because it is so soft. But this ends up being very dark, and as the darkest pencil, it's only one I can really use when my hair is freshly coloured, which it currently is not, because of the darkness. I do like that it has that red-orange tone to it, which is what I like and want with a brow pencil, but it is very dark. I have found a way to use it, because this one, when I started this endeavour, was one that I'm like, I'm never going to be able to use this, it's way too dark. But I found that essentially blotting my eyebrow makes it look nicer. It shears the colour out much more and brings out, I feel, more of that oranginess and the redness without having it be so dark. And the easy way that I do it, I literally just wipe my hand over my eyebrow. That can get messy, so using a Q-tip will give you the same result. But I essentially find that drawing my eyebrows on with this and then removing about half of what I've put on with either my hand or a Q-tip gives me a result that is workable, and that is how I find this to work and how I will be using it going forward. Personally, for me, I would not repurchase this, partly because of the colour but also mostly because of the price. It just ends up being way too much money on something that is not going to last me very long, and I have preferences that are much cheaper that I'm going to go for over this every single time. But having heard everyone on YouTube rave about this for years, I wanted to try it, and I've now done so. I definitely think this is useful and I can understand why a lot of people love it. This range also is one of the ones that has the most colours, so if you're looking for a colour that is not Auburn, you can check it out and you'll most likely find a colour that's going to suit you. But for me, the price tag on this is just too big. And I have ranked all of these on 5 different things, which will be easy to explain on the blog, which is linked in the description box. But I have them ranked by colour, depth of the colour, firmness, ease of use, and how they wear throughout the day. For colour, 1 is more brown and 5 is more orange, and this is getting a 3 for me. I find it to be fairly middle of the road. Because it is so dark, it does end up looking more brown than it does orange, but once it's blotted, it ends up looking a little bit more how I like it. A little bit more of that red and orange comes through. For depth of colour, this is the darkest of the bunch. This gets a 5. As I said, it's too dark for my liking, but if you have darker red hair or darker auburn hair, this might be a tone that could work for you. For firmness, I have this at a 2. It is very soft, which I don't like. I find it to be too soft, but you know, to each their own. For ease of use, I also have it ranked at a 2, largely for the colour, but also it's essentially 50-50 split between the colour and the softness of this. And I find the softness is too soft for me to be able to have the control and get the finished result that I like, but it's usable. And for wear, it is a 5. It stays through anything. I was worried about this and another one, which are the 2 softest ones in here, because I find very soft pencils don't stay very well on my eyebrows, and if I'm touching my face I end up rubbing them off. Even though I do get some product rub off if I do touch my eyebrows throughout the day, majority stays on through the end of the day, so I never worry. So this gets a 5 for wear. Next up, I have the BH Cosmetics pencil, and this is my least favourite out of the bunch for the colour entirely. This is one of the more firm ones, which I enjoy, but this is also the least red and orange one. This is the colour that, to me, doesn't really look like it has any red tones in it. It looks more like a sort of yellowy, greeny brown. It ends up matching my eyebrow hair fairly well, but my eyebrow hair is grey, and I don't want to match it, which is why I'm colouring them in. So I'm not that fond of that. I do like the firmness of this, but this ends up being on the border of too firm, where it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to get it to transfer properly, especially in the areas where I have more hair, because I have a couple of sparse areas where product transfer is super easy because it's gliding onto the skin. It's a little bit harder to get it to apply evenly on the areas where I have more hair, but it's doable and I can get a fairly decent result with this. The thing that annoys me so much about this one though is that this has a 1/3 of the product that the other ones do. It's not horrible. This is $7 US, so it's not the most expensive out of the bunch. It's the 3rd cheapest, if you will. But it also has a 1/3 of the product, which I don't like. And it ends up being essentially almost the price of an ABH pencil if I'm gonna scale the price up per gram. Yeah, overall this is, I don't like it because the colour, and for me with the brow pencils, colour is one of the things that I look for the most. Because I dye my hair a red, orange, auburn tone, my natural hair, not sure how well it's going to pick up, is more sort of greyish blonde brown. And ends up being in that middle spot where it is a somewhat decent mix of grey, brown and blonde. I find that it just looks grey, so I prefer to dye it. And my eyebrow hair are half blonde, half grey. And I want them to match my hair. I don't want them to look grey or brown. So this is not for me. For colour, this is a 1. I really struggle to detect any redness here, and I would call this more of like a medium light brown. For depth of colour, it's a 2. It is very light, and I don't mind that. One of my favourites that you're going to see is more light in colour and ends up looking, compared to a lot of them, more orange, but can still have some depth. This ends up being light and sometimes it's a bit too light, but I think a lot of the lightness from this and what I don't like about that comes from the fact that the colour is just wrong. And because the colour is so wrong, everything else sort of also throws it off a little bit. For firmness, this is a 5. It's the most firm of the bunch and I like that about it. For ease of use, it's a 3. I find it fairly easy to use, but it is very, very firm and I have to be careful not to break off the tip once I'm using this. The thing I struggle with a little bit is to get an even colour throughout my brows. I don't necessarily mind that I get some parts that are darker and lighter because it adds texture and mimics hair, but I find it to be difficult to control sometimes, which is why this only gets a 3. For wear, this gets a 5, and sort of a forewarning for everything gets a 5 for wear because I don't notice a difference. Then I have my 2 pencils from Colourpop. These are the least expensive of the bunch. They are $6 US each, and the Brow Boss pencil is a retractable one, so you can screw it up and down. The other one that I have here, it says just brow pencil on the packaging. I think it is a Precession brow pencil though. It's not retractable. So you can't wind this down once you've wound it up, which, you know, I'm going to get to. I'm going to start with the Brow Boss. And this I like. This ends up being my second favourite, and the only thing that essentially doesn't make this my favourite is the colour. It's a little bit more brown than I want. This just has some red and orange tones to it, which I absolutely like. And I like it a lot. I find that it can sometimes look a little bit brown compared to what I want, but I also have a place for that. I also do enjoy the price point of this, and I also like the formulation. This is a semi-hard, it's not the hardest one, but it ends up being very easy to get it to transfer. I don't have to worry about it going anywhere. And it's not so soft that it ends up over-applying product, which is one of the reasons I like this one a lot. And overall, I just think this is a fairly good middle ground pencil. For me, the only reason that this is not number 1 is the colour. It's a little bit more brown than what I want, but I can make it work, and I really like the formulation. For colour, this gets a 3. It ends up being, it has some red tones to it. If I look at it like alone, it almost looks a bit like pinky red, not necessarily orange red, but it has enough warmth to it so that I like how it looks. For depth of colour, it gets a 2. It's fairly light, and I like that, and ends up working very well for me. Firmness, this ends up getting a 3. It's very middle of the road. It's a little bit softer than what I prefer, but it is not so soft that it just ends up everywhere. I despise soft brow pencils. I can't work with them. I don't like how they look on me because they tend to over apply product, and I have very little control. This ends up being firm enough so that I can have control. I can draw hair-like strokes if I feel like it. I can also fill in my entire eyebrow fairly easily if I want to. I don't have to put too much pressure. I don't really have to worry about this breaking. And it ends up being fairly middle of the road for both colour and firmness, which I like. Ease of use, this is a 1. It's very easy to use. I like it a lot. So, you know, it does exactly what I want in a pencil. And as I said, for wear, and that just fell underneath my bed. Where it gets a 5, I have no issues with it, and I like how it looks. I actually find it to be a little bit difficult to remove, which I don't mind because just means it stays. Then we have the Precession brow pencil from Colourpop. This is my least favourite. It actually battles the BH Cosmetics as my least favourite. This has a decent tone. It ends up being a very, very similar tone to the other Colourpop pencil, but the reason I hate this with a passion, one is that it's not retractable, and the way it's not retractable, it ends up being like a flat edge up on the top. So I have to hold it like that to be able to use it. I can't really angle it the way I can with the other pencils if I want a thinner line. And that means I don't have as good control with this as I do with the other ones. One of the reasons I also don't like this is that it's very, very soft. It just glides onto the skin, which, if that's what you're looking for, this is your friend, and can be very easy to use to fill out areas. But because this is so soft, I find that it goes very, very dark very quickly. On its own, the colour doesn't have that much depth compared to the Anastasia one, but I find that it ends up being too dark because it applies too much. I much prefer the lighter tones that I can get if I just use it lightly, but I can't get that tone throughout my entire brow because it just is too soft. Another reason I don't like it is because I can only click up a little bit at a time, and I have to go back and click up so many times to do my eyebrows. I have cut that out of the portion of me applying this because it took so long and I don't like it. Colour wise, I don't hate it. it ends up being a fairly nice warm brown. Very, very similar to the other one, but I find it to be a touch darker. But I find this to be the one with the least amount of control. It's the hardest to use, it's the hardest to get an even look on both eyebrows, and I really struggled with this when I applied it, which you can see. It's not my best brow day with this, and in general, I don't like it. I found the way that this is going to be used at most likely is going to be that I line with the Brow Boss, fill in with this, because I can't line my eyebrows nicely with this. It just doesn't work. For colour, this ends up getting a 3. It's almost identical to the other one, sort of browny orange. I find that this has maybe a touch more orange in it versus the sort of pinky red undertone that the other one has, and I like that. Depth of colour, it ends up at a 4. Now, this isn't like super, super dark if you're looking for that, but out of all of these, this ends up being the second darkest because of the softness. I find a lot of the time there's a correlation between how soft a product is and how intense the colour is going to be, and that absolutely is the case with this one. I find that to be difficult to work with because I can't control the pressure very easily. I mean, in theory I could just use a lighter hand and hopefully get the same result, but I don't have full control over how much colour this pays off because it is so soft. Firmness, it's a 1. It's very, very soft, and yeah, as I said, I don't like that. Ease of use gets a 4. I find this to be hit and miss. Some days I can put it on fairly easily, I don't have to fuss around with it. Today, when I'm filming this, is the day I filmed when I put this on as well, and I struggled so much. I want my eyebrows to go on quickly. I want it to be an easy process because it's a lot of small finicky work, and I have a lot of pain in my hands because of my chronic illness, and fidgeting and working with this to get that nice eyebrow look that I like and want and can't always get. It just caused me pain today, which I don't like and I don't want. I feel like I've seen a lot of people online talk about how they like brow pencils to be soft because they're easy to apply. I find them to be the exact opposite. So, you know, if you're someone who likes softer pencils, take that into consideration. For me, this just doesn't work because it is too soft. It does, however, stay put, which, you know, is a good thing. I find this to be difficult to remove because it deposits a lot of product. So I have to go over multiple times, whether it's with a makeup wipe. I find using an oil dissolves this fairly quickly. It dissolves most makeup, to be honest. But using a wipe, I have to go over multiple times because it does always leave a little bit of trace. It doesn't always want to let it go. So, you know, it stays put, and that's not a bad thing. And then my final one, and my final one is the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. And if you've seen any of my videos where I've talked about eyebrow products before, you will know that this is my favourite. I have repurchased this over and over and over and again for years at this point, and it's my favourite, and partly because of the price. Now, in Norway these are expensive. These cost $10 US, but the place I buy them for, it's 129, and okay, give or take. Thankfully I can frequently find these on sale, so, you know, I don't have to pay full price, but they are expensive. They are in Norway about half-ish the price of a brow wiz, to about maybe a third of the price, give or take. I like this a lot. The colour for this is what I want the most. If you've seen any of my other videos where my eyebrows look not grey, it's what I've been using. It's the most orange in tone, and I just love that so much. I find that this can have two different appearances on my skin. If I'm not wearing foundation, and this goes on essentially bare skin, this ends up looking very orange, and I like that a lot. On top of foundation, and especially on top of powder like today, it ends up looking a little bit darker and a little bit more brown, but it still holds on to that orange colour so well, which is why I love this so much. This is also very firm. It's not the firmest, but I find it takes a little bit of pressure to get it to come off and onto my skin. And I like that. It gives me very, very good control for doing any of my smaller detail work. And I also find it's not so firm that it's difficult to fill in the larger portions of my brows. All around, it's just the best pencil for me. It ends up being a fairly similar pencil to the Brow Boss pencil, but I find that the colour isn't the biggest difference, and also the firmness. This is a tiny bit more firm. Other than that, I find them to be very similar pencils, very comparable. I like this a lot. I have used it for years. I repurchased it over and over again because, and the biggest thing is the tone of this is just exactly what I want. It ends up being orange enough so that it plays with the orange and the warmth of my hair, and it works well whether my hair is freshly coloured or the colour being more washed out, which is what it's currently at. And I really like that I don't have to worry about getting a separate pencil for, you know, when my hair is darker or when my hair is lighter. This just works overall. It also manages to have enough brown in it to sort of anchor it so that it doesn't look like I've just gone with an orange lip liner. And I like that a lot. I find that the balance and colour of this pencil is exactly what I want, and I just love it for that. I also like the formulation a lot, which is why I just keep buying it over and over again. The colour for this is 5. This is the most orange of the bunch. Along with the Colourpop one, it ends up being the warmest, but this has the most orange tones outright, and I love it for that. Depth of colour, it ends up being a 3. It's the middle of the road. As I said, it can have a bit of depth if I apply it over a set base. So if my eyebrows have foundation or powder in them, it ends up looking a little bit darker than if I were to apply it over clean skin. If I apply it over clean skin, the colour depth ends up being more like a 2. For firmness, it ends up being a 4 or 3 to a 4. It's a little bit sort of depending. I really like how this applies. It is firm enough so that I'm not worried about it sliding everywhere, but it's not so firm that I find it very difficult to use. Ease of use for me is a 1. Overall, I don't find eyebrows the easiest to apply because I have fine motoric issues and a lot of pain in my hands. But this is one of the easiest products I have used on my eyebrows because I have so good control with it, and I just also really like the end result. And the wear of this is a 5. It's the only one here that I have properly like tested through different weather. I don't do much. I am homebound and disabled, and I don't get out much. I live in a cold climate, so I haven't tested these through like hot weather, humid weather. I have tested this through hot and humid weather, and it lasts fairly well, so I can't really give you a tell on the rest of them in hot and humid weather, other than the fact that I've worn them through physical therapy. I get sweaty through physical therapy and they've stayed on fairly well, but I can't really give you like a comprehensive weather test on them because I don't get out much. And that was my battle of the brows. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've tried any of the pencils, tell me what you think of them down in the comments, and I hope you're staying safe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!